So the term angel appears in the King James Version Bible 201 times, and then the term angels, so the plural form of angel, appears about 93 times in the King James Bible. So that's quite a lot of times. So I was just thinking that maybe I would share with you a little bit about why I decided to start studying angels and why I ended up finding them absolutely fascinating. There's so many things that I was able to learn about them that not only changed the way like I interact with other people, but also like the way I see the world around me and kind of like my daily experiences. And even when I'm like, just by myself driving alone in the car, like, I actually think about angels from time to time. Like, what are they doing? Like, what is happening around me that I can't even see? And everything changed. Even my priorities, things that I thought were like really important, became like not so important to me anymore. And just the world of like angels, the whole entire, I don't know, my whole spiritual life changed drastically when I started to learn about angels. Who are they, what they do. So I just thought I'd share a little bit more about why I decided to study it, and specifically two things that kind of really sparked my interest. And there were two passages that I read. These are 2 years ago. I didn't read them on the same day, but these are two that really stood out to me. So the first one is found in the Spirit of Prophecy. And it says, "Peace and joy and perfect submission to the will of heaven existed throughout the angelic host. Love to God was supreme, love for one another impartial. Such was the condition that existed for ages before the entrance of sin." So there's so many things that came out just from reading that one passage for me. The first thing that stood out to me was that angels existed for a very long time. Like, ages to me seems like forever, but it wasn't forever. I do believe that angels were created beings, that they didn't always exist from the beginning of time, sort of thing. Like God was always ever existing. But I do believe that they were created. But they were here for a very long time, so they must be very knowledgeable and very intellectual beings to, have been around for quite some time. So that's the first thing that I got from it. The second was just a little saying when they were saying like love for one another was impartial. I just think that that's really beautiful to hear. I don't know, when I read it, it made me all like warm, and like it was just really nice to hear anybody or anything be described as, the character of the angels being described as having love for one another, being impartial. I don't know, it just sounds kind of beautiful. So that was that part. The second thing that I ended up reading was in the Signs of the Times, and it said the angels have been created full of goodness and love. They loved one another impartially and their God supremely, which is similar to what we just read before. And they were prompted by his love to do his pleasure. The law of God was not a grievous yoke to them, but it was their delight to do his commandments. I love that part. To hearken unto the voice of his word. But in this state of peace and purity, sin originated with him who had been perfect in all his ways. The Signs of the Times, April 28th, 1890. So as you can see, the beginning of, this sort of passage, or this part of the paragraph kind of sounds very similar to what I read before, and it is, but there's something that was added to it that it just stuck with me, and I always kind of think about it from time to time, and that is where it said that, let me just make sure I find it here, the law of God was not a grievous yoke to them. The reason why this stood out to me is I hear a lot of times, a lot of people say, and I'm not gonna lie, I said it when I was younger too, that, sometimes it felt like being a Christian was just following a whole bunch of rules and a whole bunch of laws, and like it could be boring, right? I guess when I was a little bit younger, I didn't really understand too much about, why my friends could go and hang out with each other, have their birthday parties on Saturdays and things like that. I wasn't able to do that. So in the beginning, I didn't really understand. As I grew older, I gained more knowledge, and it made more sense to me, and I followed through with that because in my heart I knew that that was right, and I love God, so it was a very easy thing for me to transition to. But in the beginning, I did kind of think like that, and I still do hear a lot of people say, being a Christian is kind of boring and you feel bound by laws and rules and things like that. But I love the way that they put it here. Like the angels, they didn't feel that way. It said that they were prompted by his love to do his pleasure and to do his will because they loved him. the laws and those things, they were just kind of outpouring. They would kind of happen naturally. And I just think that that was really beautiful, that they didn't feel it as like a burden or a grievous yoke to them, as Ellen put it here. But I just absolutely love that verse. So it kind of really spoke to the characters of, you know, angels. And right now, like the righteous angels, this is what they, you know, this is what they feel. So I think it's really amazing. So those are the two passages that really kind of sparked my interest, and I was just kind of like, oh, okay, like this could be pretty interesting for me to, I guess, dive into more. Not only that, I guess when I was younger, I always thought of like angels, like, you know, those ones from the cartoons, or like, you know, little babies with wings or things like that. Like I didn't really understand, like I'm talking like pretty young. And then, you know, obviously a little bit later in elementary school, I started to get a little bit of a different picture of them, but still I didn't really know about them. I just kind of had this like vision of like these like tall sort of like beings dressed in white robes with angel wings, like big ones, like holding harps, you know, like excuse me, I didn't really know too much about their characters, or, you know, what scripture says about them. I grew up in the Catholic Church, so there's a lot of like images about, you know, what they would look like, but again, never really spoken about too much. And even in Sabbath schools, after I was in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, there was a lot of stories, like Bible stories that we would go through, and angels would always pop up here and there, but not too much attention was really paid to them. It was a little bit more, the focus was about the Bible character, like the human character, which is obviously really important. There's so many lessons, but I guess the angels were kind of just there. They gave a message, and then that's it. That's all I would know about them. So I was like, okay, let me like look into them a little bit more. Let me get some notes out. Like, let me see what I can figure out about them. So I thought that, yeah, I had a pretty good time learning about them, especially in the beginning. And now I still obviously have a good time, but definitely learning more about them and always growing. There's so much stuff to learn about angels, and the more I learn about them, like I said, the more it shapes like the world that I'm living in, and it's pretty cool and amazing that that can happen. And so the last thing that I'm going to quickly share with you are 3 reasons as to why I really started to, I guess, study these. And then in another video, I'm going to explain a little bit about some fundamental things that I learned about it in the beginning, for anybody who has never really thought about studying angels before, or kind of getting into the whole I guess, topic about angels. So a couple of foundational little things that I've learned that I thought were pretty cool. But right now I'm going to quickly say 3 things as to why I decided to start. So the first one is the angels were pretty prominent in the Bible. And I mentioned this literally like a minute ago, but they always happen. Like they always come into the stories, and then they tend to, you know, they send messages, and they do all these different things, and they come up in different parts of the Bible, but they're pretty prominent. So that was one reason why I was like, okay, I think maybe I should learn a little bit more about them. Second thing, so angels play a pretty important function, or like I guess a role in God's overall plan for humanity. That was really hard to say, but they play an important role for God's overall plan of humanity. And I started to learn a little bit more about that when I was reading the story of redemption and the Great Controversy. So the story of redemption really opened up my eyes to certain things that were, I guess, happening that were in the world that were like completely unseen and like unknown to me. And when it went back into like, you know, the war in heaven, when that was described, like what the angels were doing, how they were feeling, like I was literally brought to tears when I was like reading that book. And that's in like the first couple chapters, and I was already just like so overwhelmed with emotion, just like really like feeling like I was having like a heart to heart with these angels like through this book. I don't know, it was such an overwhelming like experience that like it was just right away I guess jolted my interest for them, and I was like, I really want to know more, because you know what, they feel these emotions, I feel these emotions. I couldn't imagine what they must be feeling when you know, Satan was saying all these terrible things about God, and you know, and like the loss that the angels themselves felt when the angels, I guess, who turned against God and went with Satan were cast out. Like the angels, they were mourning, like the righteous ones, 'cause they feel so sad. And I don't know, it really hit me in a different way. And what they're doing right now for humanity is it's unbelievable, the things that are being described that are happening right now. Even while I'm making this video, like what's happening around me, like it's it's crazy. It's really interesting. So I was like, I gotta read more about this. So the third one is that it reminds us that there are things inside of this world that are unseen to us. And I kind of mentioned that in the last point. But like I said before, this really changed my life when I started to read a little bit more about what is happening around us and how the angels are fighting for us, like the amount of them that are actually here and what they're doing. It was just so overwhelming to me that I couldn't just like stop my interest. Like it's still continuing. Like whenever I read, I guess, like a Bible story now, or like whenever I'm reading a chapter in the Bible and an angel comes up, I automatically just like focus in on there for a sec, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go back. Like I gotta see like where did this come from? Like, I don't know. It's just, I really focus in on whenever I see the term angel or angels or anything like that. I just find it so interesting, and this studying of the topic, like I said, has really opened up my eyes to a lot of things that are kind of happening around me. And yeah. So before we leave, I just quickly want to leave you with one verse that I found so comforting at the beginning of my journey with angels when I started reading more about it, and it's actually found in 2 Kings verses 6 and 16. And I end up always going back to this verse a lot because it's such a good and powerful verse, and it really speaks to angels and God and his power and Jesus, and it's just such a beautiful verse. And this is what it says. It says, "Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them." I just think that that is so amazing and so powerful, and we have nothing to worry about because those angels that have fought for us for so long, like they're still here fighting for us. The ones who won the war in heaven at the beginning, those are the ones that are fighting for us now, and it's just so comforting and it's so beautiful. So I really encourage you guys to maybe take a look into angels a little bit more, and just kind of, I guess, maybe pick out a Bible story that maybe you've never read before, and look through it and see how angels come up and what exactly they've been doing. I'm going to make another video just saying a couple of, I guess, foundational things that I've learned about angels. And yeah, that's kind of where I started. So I'm going to share that with you. So I'll see you really soon, and I hope you guys have a great day.